Hi guys, so now I want to talk about something interesting. I will explain how those little drawings that you might be making when you're on the phone, when you're thinking, not really paying attention, when you're not paying attention in class, when you're pretending that you're at a meeting and you're really listening, but you're not really listening and you're making those little drawings, they are very telling. And I'm going to tell you about a lot of them. And I am certain that you can relate to more than one of them, and you'll be surprised to find out what they actually mean. It's very telling, and it's going to tell you a lot about yourself. Because once the mind loosens the control and lets go, the inner self takes control, your subconscious begins to draw your inner hidden little secrets. So I decided to kind of explore it and find out and then to bring it to you. So I'm going to go through a few pictures that you might be drawing automatically. Let's get started. So one of the drawing is people. If you like drawing like human faces or in general people, according to psychologists, it means that you're lacking communication. Especially if you're kind of an extrovert and you don't have many people to talk to, should find somebody. And if you draw a person with a lot of lines, that means that you don't want to talk to anybody. If you have a lot of little details, it means that you might want to look for somebody more pleasing to speak to. If you draw eyes, it means that you have a lot of self-criticism. If you draw a mouth, for example, that means that you're a very expressive and sensual person. Now, there's a lot of people who like to draw signatures. It doesn't usually mean that they're getting ready to be like a big, boss. It means something else. And you're not practicing to sign a document. No. In reality, it means that you kind of into yourself and a little self-centered. Even if you are solving a problem, you can't stop thinking about yourself. So you're drawing your little signatures. If you're in the office and listening to your boss and you're doing signatures, a little self-centered. Now, for those who draw geometric symbols, and this is a part that is very useful for our course. If you draw squares, diamonds, or any shape, they're very telling. Usually those things are very clear because they're shapes and they're not more abstract. Things like a square is very interesting. You know what? I'm not going to really tell you a lot about it because I will tell you about it when you're actually going to be drawing them. Circles. Circles are, if you're drawing, when you're talking on the phone and you discover that you're like drawing a circle over and over and over, psychologists say that you lack the attention and support from your friends. So you're kind of trying to gather together, a collective community, to become a member of a team, to have more human relations. So if you draw pictures like a circle after circle after circle, you might want to broaden your circle of friends or co-workers. Animals, if you draw animals. If you draw little animals, well, that means that you can draw, because I can't draw anything. Maybe something that might look like a cat. Not really. But if you look at the kind of zoo you created on your paper and you're drawing predators, that means that you might have aggression inside you. Or if you draw bunnies and squirrels, that means you're kind of more of a soft person, more like a fuzzy type of personality, as opposed to drawing a tiger that is something more aggressive. So if you think about it, you don't even have to have a degree to really look at your picture, and if you're able to kind of assess it, it's very, very telling. And it's something that we will be discussing in our courses, because there's going to be a part where we're actually going to teach you to diagnose your drawing. It's a very telling process, and I know I'm telling you this in a kind of playful way, but this can be extremely useful because if you have, especially if you, let's say, if you have kids, or if you kind of choose to glance at somebody else's drawing, it's a little thing that you can kind of have an insight into their mind. What else? What else do we usually draw? One thing, if the animals that you draw are not really diversified, if it's like the same animal all the time, that means that you specifically identify with that animal. So if it's like, let's say, a rabbit, you might want to kind of think that you gotta pace yourself so you don't feel like you're constantly running, What else? I want you to pay attention also where you're drawing, where your picture is kind of located, which is actually what we're going to get into again in our course, because you'll be surprised that according to the location of your visual representation, you can also tell in what kind of state of mind you are, which is again something you will learn to recognize and change if that is what you want. So that's a very interesting thing that you might want to explore as well. According to scientists, a drawing of kind of a circle that opens up and up and up, and it's kind of a spiral, means that you at this particular time don't really want to get involved with a lot of things. That actually means that you're kind of trying to space out, okay? That you don't want to concentrate on something specific. You kind of want to spread your thoughts around into something that is more, I guess, less stressful, that you don't want to focus on something very specific. You don't want to try to solve your own problems. You don't want to be in the spotlight. So I want you to pay attention, to what you're doing. Wavy lines. If you, let's say, pay attention that somebody else is drawing a wavy line, it also can be telling, because not always this is all about you. You can kind of look into what somebody else is doing. So if you see somebody's doing wavy lines, you might want to kind of leave them alone and let them be on their own wave, because they're not really looking, to discuss anything in detail, anything specific. You might want to give them a little bit of time. Errors. If you're drawing errors, it doesn't mean that you're, trying to target somebody to do something, harmful to them. Although in our cases that we're going to be discussing in our classes that you're going to guys see, errors do have a very specific meaning because of the state of mind that you are going to be in, but I'll get into it in a little more detail. So errors indicate your direction in general. So if your error is, let's say, facing down, it doesn't mean that you want to bury yourself in the sand. It kind of just has a more of a general meaning, It means that you just kind of an introvert, It could be characterized as something that you are kind of like not ready to deal with something just about now. An arrow that points left or right can give you a hint into your subconscious that you might be living in the past, or kind of being your own, la la land in the future. So pay attention to those little, those little drawings. What else? Stars. Stars are very simple things that you draw. It's something simple, something that we learn when we're kids, because you don't even have to take your hand off the paper. So if you're drawing stars, that means you're like a hopeful person, that you're kind of always, your mind is somewhere else. Or if you have A lot of big stars, that means that you kind of see yourself as a center of attention. Or if they're little stars, or a whole bunch of little stars, this is kind of how you identify at this point. You don't really see yourself as being very significant. What else? Let me see what kind of shapes we have. If the stars have a lot of little kind of strokes to it, you might be low on energy, so you might want to get something yummy to eat, something sweet and sugary. If during a call or some other, business call, you're sketching flowers, or you're sketching kind of clouds and a sun, that actually means that you're kind of a person who's very optimistic. You're happy with the events in your life. Maybe you're kind of even in the clouds and dreaming of something really nice. In general, this is a very optimistic drawing. So don't even try to pretend, like you're down if you're drawing flowers. Crosses. If you notice that you're drawing crosses over and over and over, it might be a telling sign, a kind of cautious sign. Pay attention to what has been going on. You might be feeling like you're not being very truthful with someone, like you're being deceiving, like you're hiding something, like you're doing something wrong. So again, pay attention to what you're drawing, because this will give you like a little clue as to what's going on in your mind. I also found that it's good not to throw away your little drawings, because over a course of time, especially if they're like in the same paper that you might have on your table all the time, you can kind of scan through and see, what different moods you might be in. And if you can tell what you were doing at that time, that's wonderful. That's self-diagnosis right there, which is super useful. So coming back to the course, I want you to understand that there are also things that that you might want to pay attention to in your drawing. It is not usual that we have the kind of shapes I was referring to, but I don't have an example here. Oh, I actually do have an example here. Flowers. Okay, it's not often, but it does happen that people end up drawing something they didn't expect to see. And that's why I want you to kind of pay attention to it. Again, we will cover a lot of different shapes, pretty much all the shapes that you can possibly make. But I want you to be able to diagnose and reach that subconscious whenever you are drawing something. Because it kind of gives you an advantage over a lot of people. So I think it's something that's really interesting and really good to know. And stay tuned for the next course.